She walked into the boutique, just like any other customer, with calm steps and a subtle smile. But there was something about her that drew the attention of judging eyes and made the manager quickly decide she didn't belong. What no one knew was that she was the wife of one of the world's most famous and respected actors. When her identity was revealed, the fallout wasn't just surprising, it was unforgettable. But before we get into that, let us know where you're watching from, share your city or country in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow we've got another story that's sure to inspire you. The boutique was a world of luxury, white marble walls, glass shelves glowing with elegance, and a soft string quartet playing in the background, blending with the subtle sense of high-end perfumes. At the heart of this world of exclusivity was Helena, the manager for over a decade. Tall, impeccably dressed, and with a gaze that missed nothing, she was the embodiment of perfection. Helena's meticulous nature was evident in everything, from the way she aligned the crystals in the displays to her unyielding pursuit of excellence. To her, luxury wasn't just a product, it was a philosophy, and only those who truly understood it were worthy of entering her domain. Tourists and window shoppers were a constant nuisance, as they only degraded the experience. She'd often murmur, "They don't buy anything, they only ruin the ambience." Helena could judge a person in an instant, assessing whether they were worthy of the boutique's exclusivity based on their appearance and attitude. It was a Tuesday morning when, during her usual store inspection, Helena spotted something that immediately unsettled her. A woman had just entered, and her outfit was a glaring mismatch to the luxury around her. Worn-out jeans, simple sneakers, and a gray sweatshirt with love printed across the chest, her presence seemed almost like a disruption in a space so meticulously curated. Helena's face hardened, but she kept her irritation in check, choosing instead to observe from a distance. She discreetly told the staff to stay alert, convinced this woman didn't belong here. But the woman seemed completely oblivious to the discomfort she was causing. She moved through the boutique with a calm demeanor, lightly touching a few items, her expression serene and curious. But there was no indication that she was planning to make a purchase. Who let someone like that in? Helena muttered under her breath, adjusting her glasses for a better look. To her, it was the ultimate intrusion. Though she worked to maintain her composure, her mind was already racing with a plan to address what she saw as an issue without tarnishing the store's reputation. She took a deep breath, straightened her blazer, and began walking toward the woman, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor, each step a reminder of the authority she commanded. When she finally reached her, Helena forced a calculated smile, cold but polite, the smile she used to dismiss people who, in her eyes, didn't belong. "May I help you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. The woman looked up, meeting her gaze with a calm, unwavering confidence that made Helena hesitate for just a moment. It was a look that seemed to say she was completely unbothered by the judgment in the room. But Helena quickly dismissed the feeling and pressed on with her plan. This woman had to leave. But before she could act, an unexpected thought crossed her mind. Who is she? The woman's appearance, with her worn jeans and casual sweatshirt, was a stark contrast to the boutique's sophisticated environment. It felt like she belonged to a completely different world. To Helena, it wasn't just the clothes, it was an affront to the refinement she so carefully curated. The sweatshirt with its bold, flashy logo, and the scuffed sneakers, Helena couldn't decide which part was worse. Every detail about her screamed a total disregard for the exclusivity of the space she had entered. Yet the woman walked on, unbothered, as if the atmosphere was adjusting to her presence. Helena's judgment deepened. She adjusted the cuffs of her blazer, took a deep breath, and decided to take charge of the situation herself. With firm steps, her heels clicking against the floor, she approached the woman, her polite smile now edged with coldness. "May I help you?" she asked, her eyes scanning the woman's outfit with a clear judgment. The woman met her gaze, offering a faint smile. "Just browsing," she replied softly, but with a firm tone. Seemingly unfazed by Helena's tone, the woman simply responded, "I see." Helena crossed her arms, maintaining an air of superiority, and with a flick of her wrist, she adjusted her hair. "But our policy is clear," she said. We aim to provide a serene and exclusive experience for our clients, and it's crucial we preserve that atmosphere. The woman tilted her head slightly, considering Helena's words. I just wanted to look around. I've never been in a boutique like this, she said calmly. Helena's lips curled into a tight smile. It certainly doesn't seem like the kind of place you frequent, she remarked, not bothering to hide her sarcasm. The woman offered a small smile, one that suggested Helena's words had no weight. That's true. I usually prefer more relaxed spaces, she replied. Helena pressed her lips together, feeling a slight provocation. Well, here, we offer something more refined, she emphasized. Our goal is to cater to those who truly appreciate the value of exclusivity and sophistication. I see, the woman said, nodding. So, exclusivity is something you measure by appearance? Helena's defensiveness flared. It's not about appearance, she replied sharply. It's about maintaining the appropriate environment for our clients. The woman kept her smile, now tinged with irony. Interesting. So, what makes a customer appropriate? Helena, irritated but controlling herself, responded, good taste, elegance, and an understanding of what luxury truly means. The woman laughed softly, almost imperceptibly. Seems like a lot of work just to buy a dress. Helena couldn't suppress an exasperated sigh. Our pieces aren't just dresses, she said, her voice heavy with emphasis. They're haute couture creations that represent a lifestyle that might be hard to explain to someone who isn't accustomed to it. The woman raised an eyebrow, genuinely curious. And you decide who's accustomed to it, don't you? I'm the manager of this boutique, Helena replied firmly. It's my responsibility to protect both the client's experience and the brand's reputation. The woman studied Helena, as if trying to figure her out. You seem to take this very seriously, she said, her tone balancing between a compliment and a veiled critique. Helena remained silent for a moment, unsettled by the woman's unshakable composure. There was something about her, an undeniable confidence that made Helena feel like the scenario around them was irrelevant. So, have you decided? Helena asked, her tone becoming more calculated. Whether you'll continue browsing, or if you'd like to try something on. I'm in no rush, the woman replied with a smile that could only be described as enigmatic. I'm still deciding. Before Helena could respond, the boutique's door swung open, and her heels echoed on the marble once more as she turned toward the entrance. An instant hush fell over the store, as if time itself had paused. Standing in the doorway was Keanu Reeves, his magnetic presence commanding every eye in the room. Dressed in casual yet elegant attire, his posture radiated confidence and simplicity. He glanced around briefly, and then his gaze landed on the woman in the sweatshirt. Ah, there you are, he said warmly, walking toward her with a relaxed smile. Helena blinked, confused. You know this person? She asked, her voice faltering for the first time. The woman, without missing a beat, turned her serene smile to Keanu. Oh, I'm sorry for the confusion. My name is Alexandra Grant. Keanu is my boyfriend, she said lightly, holding Keanu's arm as he approached. Helena froze. Alexandra Grant. The name wasn't just familiar, it was connected to the man standing before her. Keanu's eyes met Helena's, his expression warm yet subtly probing. Was there a problem here? He asked, his tone calm but firm. Helena scrambled to regain her composure, straightening the cuffs of her blazer. No, sir. Of course not. I was merely assisting Miss Grant in ensuring she had the best possible experience. Alexandra chuckled softly, her laugh free of malice but laced with quiet understanding. Oh, she was being very attentive, she said, glancing at Keanu in a way that only he seemed to fully understand. Keanu's smile remained, but there was something in his eyes that made Helena acutely aware of the weight of her earlier words. Thank you for looking after Alexandra, he said, his tone polite but carrying an undercurrent of something deeper. We'll take another look around, he added, leading her further into the boutique. Helena stood frozen in place, a storm of shock, shame, and disbelief brewing inside her. Her employees, who had been observing from a distance, exchanged discreet glances, clearly trying to process what they had just witnessed. As Keanu and Alexandra calmly wandered through the boutique, the stark contrast between Alexandra's simple sweatshirt and Keanu's effortless magnetism only amplified the gravity of Helena's mistake. For the first time, Helena's confidence wavered. "What have I done?" she thought, as the weight of the situation began to sink in. Keanu glanced over at her, his expression cordial yet subtly questioning. "Was there a problem here?" Keanu asked, his voice calm but firm as his eyes met Helena's. His presence was undeniable. There was an air of quiet authority in his tone that made Helena's stomach tighten. She scrambled to collect herself, adjusting the cuffs of her blazer in an attempt to regain some control. "No, sir." "Of course not," she replied, her voice slightly faltering. "I was merely assisting Miss Grant, ensuring she had the best possible experience." Alexandra chuckled softly, her laughter free of malice but laced with understanding. "Oh, she was very attentive," she said, glancing at Keanu with a look that only he seemed to fully interpret. Keanu's smile remained, but the weight of his gaze made Helena feel like the walls were closing in. Keanu walked around the boutique, his gaze flicking over the products and the staff before returning to the conversation. "I'd like to understand something," he began, his voice carrying an air of quiet authority. Alexandra mentioned there was an interesting exchange of words. "Perhaps you could clarify what happened." Helena swallowed hard, her heartbeat quickening. "Ah, of course, Mr. Reeves. I was simply ensuring her experience aligned with our standards." "Perhaps there was a misunderstanding," she said, her words tumbling out as she tried to steady herself. Keanu raised an eyebrow, his expression calm yet unyielding. "A misunderstanding?" he asked, his tone pressing for a more satisfactory explanation. Helena took a slight step back, adjusting her approach. "Yes, I was just concerned about the store's atmosphere. We aim to provide a serene and exclusive space for our clients." "Perhaps I was a bit too direct," she said, trying to soften her earlier actions. Alexandra, however, interjected, her voice still serene but sharp enough to cut through the tension in the air. "Oh, I completely understand," she said, locking eyes with Helena. "Exclusivity is very important here. But it's curious how that seems to be measured in such subjective ways." Keanu crossed his arms, tilting his head slightly as he observed Helena. "You work on commission, don't you?" he asked casually, but with an undeniable weight that made Helena's heart race. "Yes, we do," she replied hesitantly, but quickly added, "but our main goal is always to serve our clients with excellence." Keanu held her gaze steady. "Interesting," he said, not breaking eye contact. "Because it seems the judgment came before the service. Am I wrong?" Helena opened her mouth to respond, but her words caught in her throat. It was clear that he wasn't wrong, and any attempt to justify herself would only make things worse. Alexandra watched the exchange intently, a small, knowing smile on her lips as she let the silence speak for itself. Keanu shook his head, exhaling briefly as he glanced at Alexandra and then back at Helena. His smile turned cold and calculated. "What a mistake." "A big one," he said, his words echoing through the boutique, each syllable packing a heavy punch. Helena froze, her mind struggling to process the weight of what she had just heard. Alexandra averted her gaze with a small, understanding smile, and a few nearby customers who had been pretending not to notice now exchanged discreet glances. One murmured, "This is what happens when people judge others by appearances." Another whispered softly, "I was thinking about buying something, but after this, I'm not sure I want to spend my money here." The full scope of her mistake began to sink in. This wasn't just about her reputation with a famous client, it was about how the ripple effects were already spreading to other customers and even her own staff. And then, as if to confirm her worst fears, Keanu delivered the final blow. "Don't worry," he said, taking Alexandra's hand with a calm smile. "We won't be purchasing anything today. We wouldn't want to disrupt the store's exclusive atmosphere." Alexandra chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Thank you so much for your attention, Helena. It was enlightening, she said, her tone laced with subtle irony. They began heading toward the door, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. As the glass doors closed behind them, the boutique seemed to breathe a collective sigh. The employees, still in shock, exchanged nervous glances, and the customers murmured among themselves, processing what they had just witnessed. Helena stood frozen, feeling as though the ground had been ripped from beneath her. She felt her phone vibrate in her pocket, and with trembling hands, she unlocked the screen. A message from a customer near the door had been sent to a group chat. Just saw Keanu Reeves walk out of the city's most famous boutique after being mistreated. The drama was big and deserved. Helena exhaled deeply, her heart sinking as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. The incident wasn't over, it was only beginning. She stood motionless for several minutes after Keanu Reeves and Alexandra Grant left the store. The boutique seemed electrified, employees exchanging nervous glances, customers murmuring among themselves. The atmosphere, once pristine and carefully curated, now felt charged with tension, and Helena knew it wasn't just her reputation on the line anymore. It was the whole boutique. Though Helena tried to regain her composure, she knew the fallout from that moment would be far-reaching. Her mind raced as she adjusted her blazer, attempting to regain control over the situation. She snapped, "Everyone, back to work." Her voice, sharp and abrupt, cut through the tense atmosphere. It was more forceful than she intended, but the air in the boutique felt thick, weighed down by the memory of the dramatic exit made by the couple just moments earlier. The sound of the glass doors shutting behind them echoed, and it was clear that no one had yet shaken off the impact of what had just happened. There was a palpable shift in the room, a dissonance that lingered long after the couple had left. Shortly after, a customer, one who had witnessed the entire exchange, walked toward one of the display cases, his steps tentative as if he was unsure of how to proceed. He paused in front of an expensive watch, but then, instead of making a purchase, turned toward Helena. With a calm yet pointed tone, he said, "I was going to buy that watch, but I think I'll reconsider. If the service here depends on how someone is dressed, maybe I shouldn't spend my money here." Helena's instinct was to force a smile, to smooth over the situation with her usual charm, but the sting of his words hit harder than she expected. Her heart sank. She felt the weight of the room's silence pressing down on her, and the realization that her authority, her control over this space, was slipping away. Slowly, more customers began to trickle out, some without a word, others muttering quietly among themselves. The quiet murmurs of discontent spread like ripples in a pond, and Helena's grip on the boutique's atmosphere, once firm, was now fragile, slipping through her fingers. Later that afternoon, Helena sat in her office, her phone trembling in her hand as she braced herself for the inevitable phone call. The boutique's owner was never one to shy away from a direct confrontation, and today, he was blunt in his assessment of the damage she had caused. He outlined the social media posts, the public backlash, the customer complaints that had flooded in within hours of the incident, and the irreversible harm that her actions had done to the store's reputation. Each word stung, cutting deep into Helena's sense of self. "Do you understand what's at stake here?" he asked, his voice cold and firm. "It doesn't matter how many years of experience you have, Helena. A mistake like this can cost us dearly. I need you to fix this. Now." Helena swallowed hard, trying to process the enormity of the situation. A heavy wave of shame, anger, and doubt crashed over her, leaving her breathless. For years, she had held steadfast to the belief that exclusivity and judgment were intertwined. She had been convinced that her role as manager was to uphold a standard, to decide who deserved to be in that space, who had earned the right to be part of the experience the boutique offered. But now, sitting in the quiet of her office, she could feel that logic unraveling. It felt fragile, like a crumbling facade. Alone, she replayed the incident in her mind over and over again. Alexandra's words echoed, calm but piercing. It's curious how that seems to be measured in such subjective ways. Helena's fingers pressed against her temples as she let out a shaky breath. She had always prided herself on creating a perfect, pristine environment where only the right kind of people could experience the luxury the boutique provided. But now, for the first time, she wondered if she had been wrong. Had she lost sight of what truly mattered? Had she become so focused on the outward trappings of luxury that she had forgotten the essence of it? She rifled through her desk, distracted by the overwhelming swirl of emotions. As her fingers brushed against an old, weathered photograph, she pulled it out, surprised by its presence. It was a photo of her younger self, standing outside a boutique she could have only dreamed of stepping into. She was dressed simply, her youthful face full of hope and excitement. Looking at that photo, something inside Helena shifted. She remembered the woman she had been before all the rules, before the walls of exclusivity, before the need for perfection. When did I forget who I was? She thought, her voice barely a whisper as she stared at the image of her younger self. The next day, feeling a sense of responsibility she had never allowed herself to feel before, Helena called a meeting with her team. The room was filled with uncertainty. Every person was bracing themselves for reprimands or a more rigid set of expectations. But instead, Helena stood before them, taking a deep breath as she began. Yesterday was a difficult day, and a lot of that was my fault. The team exchanged surprised glances. Helena was known for her assertiveness, her sharp management, and her unyielding expectations. Admitting to a mistake was a rarity, so hearing her speak so vulnerably left the room in stunned silence. I've always believed that our job was to protect the brand's image, to maintain exclusivity. But in doing so, I've realized I forgot something important: respect. And yesterday, I failed to show it. Clara, the one who had voiced her discomfort the most during the previous day's events, smiled slightly. It was a gesture of support, one that encouraged Helena to keep going. Looking around at her team, Helena continued, "From today, I want us to think about exclusivity differently, not as a barrier, but as an opportunity to create a welcoming, memorable experience for every customer. We have the power to make people feel valued, regardless of their appearance or status. Let's change." The weeks that followed brought visible transformation. The staff underwent intensive training to adopt a more inclusive, customer-centered approach. Helena, leading by example, greeted each customer with warmth and openness. No longer did she reserve her kindness for those who appeared worthy in the traditional sense. Physical changes also took place. Near the entrance of the boutique, a mural was installed with the words, "Luxury is a state of mind, not an appearance." For Helena, this wasn't just a new motto. It was a philosophy that had taken root in her heart, replacing the old one that had kept her so rigid. A few days later, as Helena sat in her office, reviewing reports, she came across that same old photograph of herself, the one of her younger self, standing before that luxury boutique, dreaming of a life she now lived. She no longer felt shame or regret as she gazed at it. Instead, she felt a deep connection to the young woman she once was, the woman who had dreamed of luxury not as an exclusive club, but as something meant to inspire and uplift. She placed the photo on her desk, next to Alexandra's message, as a constant reminder of where she had come from and the person she was choosing to become. Now, the boutique proudly displayed a new message near the entrance: "True luxury is not in the things we possess, but in the connections we create." Helena gazed at the words every day, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The boutique had transformed. It was no longer just a place to sell high-end goods. It had become a space where people, no matter their background, could feel seen, appreciated, and valued. As the boutique's lights dimmed at the end of each day, Helena stood silently in the center of the store, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. For the first time in a long time, she felt at peace, both with her work and with the person she was becoming. If you enjoyed this story, we have many more that will warm your heart. Click the screen to explore more tales of hope, compassion, and resilience.